Right, just waiting while a few more folks join. Oh, we'll kick off. Me kara ki a tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu ti hei mauri ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Jono. Ngā mihi kia koe. Thanks for opening for us. And no mai haere mai. Welcome everybody to what is the first webinar that Te Ngākau Kahukura have hosted for 2023. It's great. I can see there are more people joining all the time, so just keep piling in and we will get started. So we've got a lot to get through, but feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat land as you go. This is going to be a conversational piece, so we'll just keep it flowing. I'm just stoked that there's so many people joining us already. So there are lots of people who know us already, probably, and also there might be some new people who don't know us. We are going to introduce ourselves individually in a minute, but on a collective level, maybe start with Te Ngākau Kahukura, right? So we're a rainbow-led and trans-led organisation. We're doing systemic advocacy and community building work with and for trans, Takatapui, intersex, rainbow communities and organisations. We're going to share lots of links in the chat that take you to various parts of our website, and you can find out more about the particular resource about pronouns that we're talking about today from there as well. But I'm here with my colleagues, Jono and Moira. I'm stoked to have them to be part of this conversation with all of you. And just to make sure you're in the right place, this is going to be a webinar about why people put pronouns in their email signatures, which is a different angle to like some ways that you could address this topic. But we think that talking about why people put pronouns in their email signatures is a missing piece of the discussion in a lot of cases. We want to approach rainbow inclusion or centering the needs of trans and non-binary people in the workplace as more than a tick box exercise. And that's really a lot of what we're hoping to talk about today, using the kind of idea of pronouns and email signatures as a starting point for that discussion. We want to support and empower our allies who are here with us today. We want to acknowledge there are trans and non-binary people also here with us today, all of our comrades. We want to empower our allies in particular in this conversation, the people who want to be able to hold the line with us, want to be able to back us up as trans and non-binary people. How do we talk about safety and respect in our workplaces in particular, using this example of pronouns and email signatures as a way into that conversation. I really want to acknowledge that we are working in a context of some pretty scary stuff at the moment, in particular in the last, I mean, you could see it as the last month or 6 months or 3 years, but there is a kind of increasing pressure, harassment, hate that a lot of trans and non-binary people and organizations and whānau are experiencing, are being targeted at the moment. And that's really hard and tiring and stressful. So we need our allies more than ever. We need you to be holding your ground with all of us. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, Jono's going to talk about housekeeping. I should probably also say that I'm Joey, but you probably already knew that. Anyway, Jono, handing over to you.
Thanks, Joey. Cool. So some real brief housekeeping. A lot of this, most of you will be very used to living in Zoom life over the past couple of years, but just so you know, this webinar is being recorded, so please be mindful of that. It'll be freely available afterwards, so you're welcome to watch or share with other colleagues or friends or family, and we really encourage you to do that kind of thing as well. We're going to kind of mostly be chatting amongst ourselves, and we'll have some time at the end for some questions and comments from all of y'all as the audience. Please don't wait to the end if you want to send us a question or a reflection at any time. Just put it into the chat box, or we do have the Q&A box open as well. If you don't mind other people seeing it, feel free to have it open. Otherwise, just before you hit the send button in the Q&A box, check that you want it just to become a little bit more private so it comes straight to the three of us. We'll be keeping an eye on both, and we'll try and get to as many questions as possible. We really appreciate your comments and your questions because it really helps us to guide the conversation and direct it in ways that are useful for all of y'all. Cool. I'm going to pass back over to Joey and we'll get into the intros.
Yay, cool. All right. I will start us off maybe, and then I'll pass over to Moira. So kia ora koutou. I'm Joey McDonald. I'm the education lead at Te Ngako Kahukura. I am zooming you from West Auckland on the whenua of Te Kawaro Amaki, which is also where I grew up. I'm a Pākehā person with whakapapa back to Scotland on my dad's side, the McDonalds of Glencoe, and England mostly on my mum's side, Essex kind of zone. I'm a trans and non-binary person, and they, them pronouns are the pronouns I want you to use about me. And I spend a lot of time talking about these things with people. So I'm always looking for another opportunity. I was going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves, say something about what motivates you to want to talk about this here topic today. Feel like I've covered that myself. Moira, can I pass over to you?
Sure thing. Kia ora koutou. He uri o no te raroa, ko ngai tūpotoki mō tukuraka te hapu, ko Moira Clooney tōku ingoa. I'm Moira. I whakapapa back to the Hokianga up north to Te Raroa, as well as across to the other side of the world, England, Scotland, Ireland, and Orkney. I'm project lead for Te Ngako Kahukura, so working closely alongside these two as part of our core team, and calling in from Mount Eden, so central Auckland. We have these flash backgrounds behind us now that Jono designed for us, so you can't see our houses, but yeah, where I am is central Auckland. What was the question? What motivated us to do this? I guess similar to Joey, just want to encourage people who are particularly consider themselves allies, are in those sort of diversity and inclusion type roles, to sort of be a bit more thoughtful about how they go about encouraging people to use and share pronouns, sort of have some thoughtfulness around safety and centering the needs of trans and non-binary people, and thinking about what it really means to include trans people beyond sort of symbols and platitudes and putting a flag on something. Just really thinking about how do we do the real work in our organisations and communities in whānau. And the resource that we put together on our website, I sort of led the writing of that alongside these two and with input from other people as well. And when I was writing it, I thought, you know, this is quite a simple sort of a topic. There's probably not very much to say, but it turns out it's really complicated and nuanced, and there's lots of ideas to share and talk about. So was really interested to share that, have a bit of a kōrero, hear what questions you all have, see what sense we can all make of this together. Oh, I should say my pronouns are they, them as well in English, or ia i te reo Māori, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. But yeah, that's me. Kia ora. I'll pass over to Jono.
Mālo lapula sui fua, mau mai langi mama. My name is Jono. I'm the practice lead at Te Ngako Kahukura. Calling in from and sort of grew up on the whenua, also the whenua of Te Kawaro Maki, just kind of over the hill from where Joey is actually. So that's cool. My whakapapa lines take me on my dad's side back up into the beautiful island nation of Samoa. And on my mom's side, we have connections over to Scotland and England. But like I said, I grew up here in Aotearoa. What? There's many reasons. I mean, number one, I'm a bit of a language nerd. And I do love how we can express ourselves and sort of talk about ourselves with the language we use, and why language is important in the way that we talk about ourselves and others. As a Samoan speaker and somebody who knows bits and pieces of Te Reo Māori, not amazing at it, but getting there, and thinking about how language presents in one languages. All of those things are really interesting to me in the context of how we then talk about ourselves within English as well. So that's important to me. The other reason why it is a topic that I'm particularly interested in is very similar to both Moira and Joey, is that it's a thing that comes up all the time, and especially in the context of workplaces, we tend to have this conversation a lot around how do we be inclusive, how do we acknowledge diversity, how do we and I love taking that conversation beyond here's the tick box processes, and rather how do we think about it and really embed it into the way that we operate with our colleagues and our friends and our family and our communities. So yeah, that's me. Joey.
Kia ora, thanks, Jono. And the format of the next 50 minutes is going to be quite flexible, but the next thing we're going to do is have a little presentation with some slides from Moira, which is highlighting some of the key points that we've got in the pronouns resource on our website. And the slides and the resource on our website are completely free and completely available for anyone to use. We'll put the slides up on the webinar website page. So you don't have to be desperately worried about writing things down or recording whatever. The webinar itself is obviously a recording. You can share that around too. We're trying to make as many things available to all of you as we can. Moira, shall I pass over to you to share your screen and things?
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. And I'm sure someone will drop a link to the resource in the chat as well if you want to follow along there. But yeah, just wanted to kind of talk through some of the key ideas that we've shared on the resource. So to start with, pronouns aren't new. We've got pronouns in every language. We use them all the time when we're talking about people other than ourselves. They're just all the kind of little words like you, me, I, we, they, them, he, she. When we're talking about pronouns in a rainbow context, we're usually talking about kind of third person singular pronouns. So the words we use when we're talking about somebody else who's not us or the person we're talking to. So he, she, or they are the most common ones, but there's other words as well. In some languages like English, we use pronouns to say something about people's gender. So if we're talking about someone and we say she, we might be implying that they're a woman, or in some contexts we might be talking about, like, there might be a gay man that uses she in those sorts of contexts. We're saying something about them being feminine. Other languages like Te Reo Māori don't have gendered pronouns, so Te Reo has wonderfully vast kind of complex system of pronouns and has a lot more to say about relationality. If I was to say to Joey, hey, after this webinar, we're going to go and get vegan ice cream sandwiches. What do I mean by we? Do I mean we, us two? Do I mean we, me and Jono? Do I mean all three of us? Do I mean some other group of people, including myself? Is Joey included or not included in that? You know, in English, we'd have to say a few more words to kind of clarify about that. And in Te Reo Māori, we use pronouns to describe who's getting the ice cream. So Te Reo does kind of relationality in pronouns in different ways, and English uses gender in pronouns. So they're not a new or an unusual thing. They're not just something that trans people use, but we're talking about them, yeah, particularly in that context of gender today. Moving through my slides. So the first idea is just using the right pronouns for somebody is a basic way of respecting them. Most people have a sense of what the right pronouns are for people to use when they're talking about them. They have ones that they're most comfortable with, and the right thing to do is to use those pronouns. There's not anything that's more correct or right than that. So the good kind of guiding principles are just to reflect language that a person uses about themselves, or that you see reflected in their email signature or on their social media profiles, those kinds of things. Respect any words that they ask you to use, ask questions if you're not sure in a respectful way. Sometimes people might not really have a particular pronoun that feels best for them, or they might prefer that you use their name, or they might use different pronouns in different contexts, right? They might have ways that their friends talk about them that are different to the ways that people at work talk about them. That's all good. I guess the general sense here is that you can't guess accurately. The best thing to do is to take cues from the person themselves and respect what they ask you to, how they ask you to talk about them, and ask questions if you're not sure. Another skill you could practice is using gender neutral language for people that you don't know. So might include using they, them pronouns about somebody, just using their name, using things like this person or that client, or can you help this person out, as opposed to kind of guessing what the language is that they might prefer about themselves based on what you think about their gender or how they look to you. So that's a sort of general first principle, is like use the pronouns that people ask you to use about themselves. The second kind of general principle is around sharing your own pronouns. When you share your own pronouns, you make it safer for other people to share theirs. You sort of normalizing the idea that it's a thing that you can do, creating an environment where it's kind of safer and more comfortable for people to share their own. So some common places where people might put their pronouns are like email signatures, as we've talked about, display names in Zoom. We've got our pronouns in ours today. You might put them on name tags, you might put them in your social media profiles, that kind of thing. And yeah, a key point here, I guess, is if you're putting your pronouns in a place like an email signature, it's really important that you've done the work first to understand how to use other people's pronouns properly. If you're sharing your pronouns in that way, you're sort of signaling that you're an ally and that you kind of understand the importance of this. And it's really fair for people to assume that then you will respect their pronouns. You won't be weird about it. You won't ask them strange questions about whether their pronouns are kind of valid language, that kind of thing. Yeah, sharing your pronouns is a way of normalizing pronouns for everybody, but also signaling that you're somebody who respects this. And I guess the third area in the resource is we want to suggest that you encourage people to share their pronouns, but that you are not forcing people to share their pronouns. Really, it's about centering the needs and safety and well-being and inclusion of trans and non-binary people, and of anybody whose pronouns are different to the ones that people expect for them, or that people kind of default to using for them when they don't have that information. So typically, if you are sharing your pronouns, and if they're the same ones that everyone always uses for you, it might feel a little bit weird to you at first, or it might feel a little bit uncomfortable or strange, but it doesn't typically involve sort of real emotional vulnerability or concerns about safety. Whereas for trans people, for non-binary people, it can mean that you're kind of forcing people into a position where they have to educate people or choose to tell people the wrong pronouns, misgender themselves, or face discrimination. So really the focus as an ally is not to be kind of forcing or pressuring everybody to have to put their pronouns in all circumstances, but instead kind of making environments where it's safer to share and where people can feel comfortable and confident that everybody's likely to respect their pronouns. That's the end of my presentation, actually. I'll
I love it.
switch my slides off and back to you, Joey.
I really appreciate the focus on creating an environment that is safe and inclusive for people, because that's a huge motivation that the three of us have talked about for why we think a webinar like this, and this topic in general, is one we talk about a lot, why it's important, why it's necessary, because we're seeing individuals who are working in particular organizations, institutions, settings, or whatever, where you get a kind of top-down message from somebody who says, oh, our latest diversity and inclusion thing is that you all have to put your pronouns in your email signatures, and you don't get told why you're doing that or what the kind of power dynamics are around it. And it doesn't really center the needs of trans and non-binary people in a clear way, because then if you are a person whose pronouns are not what people expect it to be for you, or you have pronouns that are they, them rather than he or she, or if you have neo pronouns, other pronouns people might use, you're immediately being put in quite a difficult position. So we think this conversation is particularly important about how it's not really it's it's not an individual act that we want trans and non-binary people to be bearing the brunt of, because it won't achieve the goal if we're the ones who are carrying that forward all the time. What achieves the goal actually of normalizing and chilling everything out, de-escalating, making this something that we can all move forward on, is if people who are probably cisgender people themselves, but maybe not, just you're probably not someone who's ever had to work particularly hard to get people to use the right pronouns about you. Like if you are a person who has gone through the world and generally you do have people gendering you correctly in the English language through pronouns, and you're kind of a bit like, well, why would I even need to tell people what pronouns to use for me? I don't need to do that because they do that, like it's kind of a normal interaction for you. You are exactly the right person to put some kind of signal in your email signature, website, etc., about why that those are the pronouns to use about you, as long as you do understand something about why you're doing that with yourself, and ideally with your team. Ideally your whole organization is getting supported to understand why that push is happening, right? Yeah. So I think the shift from individual responsibility to collective responsibility is really important there, and figuring out who's taking the pressure, who's being asked to carry that labor. Yes, we all thought maybe pronouns were a bit of a basic thing for us to write a resource about or do a webinar about, but then we started digging into it. We're like, no, we got a lot of thoughts, which is not going to surprise anyone. Please do feel free to keep sending us questions. We've already had a few questions come in as part of the registration process. We really appreciate that. We're just going to have discussion now based on those questions and based on the key points that we know that we want to cover. But if you have things that you're really hoping we will touch on or explore more, please pop them in the chat, pop them in the Q&A if you want to. We would always love to hear that. And I appreciate, Jono, that you're keeping such good track of those things.
Joey,
okay. Yeah.
Joey, a question actually just came in, which I think is really useful to answer now,
Great.
just because it just got brought up. What are neopronouns?
I feel like I should have come up with a snappy little statement about what neopronouns are. It's like, you go.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say there's a short paragraph on our resource.
Here we go.
Just what we've just shared on our website is neopronouns, essentially pronoun sets that have been created more recently. So he, she, and they are pronouns that have been used for years and years,
hundreds of years
in English to talk about individual people. But pronouns like the examples we've got on our website are ze and here, or a and m. Like there's lots of examples, and we could probably link to a list. There's resources that have more information about how to use them. I guess the advice that we've got on our website is just like learning any new words or words that are new to you. It can just take a bit of practice to get these right if they're not familiar to you. So if somebody shares that they're using pronouns that you aren't really sure how to use those in English, you could have a go, look up information online, check in with them, ask questions, pay attention to how their friends and family talk about them using those words. And it's just like some new words that you might need to put in a bit of effort to learn.
And it can be, it can really be that moment where you feel like you're creating a new pathway in your mind that you just, once it's created, it's a lot easier, but it takes a while to get there. So if someone's pronouns are ze and here, for example, they're asking you to replace saying he or she with saying ze, which is usually spelt Z-E. And so you can kind of see how that is like a gender neutral version of she, he, they, ze. But you have to figure out how to conjugate with pronouns. So it can get quite confusing quite fast if it's a neo-pronoun, a new pronoun set that people feel comfortable with. And that is just going to be practice. Like if it's ze and here, then you might say here is replacing her or his, right? That is his book. You might say that is here book. Or instead of saying she's coming into this meeting, ze's coming into this meeting. But it really does take practice, and it's yeah, something that people will really understand, usually, that you're trying and you're learning and you're growing and unlikely to get it right every single time. But as we always say about, if you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. You apologize, you say the correct pronoun, you correct yourself, and you move on. You don't make that person dwell on it with you and go through a whole education session at that time. That's usually not helpful. But there are lots of resources that we are making and linking you to that we hope will help. I think it's important not to get too caught up on like, what about this kind of pronoun or that kind of pronoun or particular, it's like using particular labels and categories. Less useful to try and learn the whole list, more useful to try and think about the underlying principles that you're working from to try and guide your behavior and what that might look like in practice. So we're hoping that the resource we've created is aimed at that kind of angle. Jono, that was great that you noticed that question, and please chuck any towards us that you see, because I think there's some great chat happening that I can't keep track of while I'm blah blah blaring, but I'm trying to see that. Yeah, if you put the effort in to learn it, it is possible to learn how to use neopronouns like a new name. But yeah, it's not an easy little switch in your mind. Can I ask either Jono or Moira or both of you the question that where we wanted to kind of springboard off? So how are we going to be creating an environment in the workplace that actually is inclusive and safe and supportive, not just tick box exercises? And how do we see the use of pronouns as part of that wider push for inclusion? Anything to get us going on there that kind of connects between those two things?
I can jump in with some initial thoughts.
Great.
Because yep. I guess when we're talking about having your pronouns really visible in your workplace in particular, it's inherently saying that this space is, I mean, this is what it should be saying, is that this space or this organization is actually safe to be a trans person in, fundamentally. Whilst our allies having allies as pronouns, that's a word, I said it, it's a thing now. But having allies pronouns actually visible is useful, because it's a sign of solidarity. Fundamentally, when we're talking about having pronouns in any more public facing spaces, and by public I mean anyone outside of yourself in your own private life outside of work. So that might be with your colleagues, but that might also be in email signatures that go out to external people or people you're working with who you may only see once or twice. It's saying that I'm safe to be openly trans or non-binary within my workplace, and also that my workplace has my back around that. So that safety goes two ways, right? So I think it's really important that when we're thinking about going beyond the tick box exercise of, oh, everybody's just going to put their pronouns in their email signatures now, or on their LinkedIn profiles, or wherever, that there's work around how do you continue to create not just safe and inclusive, but actually supported working environments for folks who are trans. Sometimes that means access to specific supports, having relationships with organizations who can continue to support or coach workplaces around being better at gender stuff overall. All of that stuff needs to be a yes and with, and we're going to put our pronouns in our insert place here, let's say email signature for the moment. It's a really core component of it. When it's not there, it's really, really obvious. And I can say, working in I've worked in an organization where it was okay, everybody's just going to put pronouns in there, into their email signatures now, done. All right, that's a thing. Yay, we're standing with our trans and rainbow whānau. And when I said, no, I don't feel comfortable with that because of the nature of my work, the question was, well, are you not standing with your trans whānau? And I was like, no. I identify as non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. It's actually a safety mechanism for me to not put mine in there because I don't know how people are going to react. And at the end of the day, the core of the work I'm doing in this particular job is not rainbow advocacy. And so I want to get the kaupapa of the mahi across rather than have that interrupted by someone asking 7 billion questions about my gender.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really
Like-
liked, Joey, what you were saying earlier about de-escalating as well, as like if you're going to be asking people to put pronouns in the email signatures in your workplace, how are you making sure that if somebody encounters pronouns that they weren't expecting, that they're going to understand what that means and not be weird about it? And how can you make sure that you've got good supportive processes and policies in place for trans people across the board? How can you make sure people have got access to bathrooms that are appropriate and safe, and that you're just not going to be weird about it? And I think that principle of de-escalating and just recognizing that this isn't strange, it's just referring to people in respectful ways. But how can you make sure you're building a workplace where that's true, where you're not getting people to signal that you're inclusive before you've done that work to really make sure that people are prepared to chill out about things.
And we really recognize that a lot of staff, kind of frontline staff, are being asked to do something like this without a lot of support from the higher ups in the organization, potentially about why, or education about it, or access to things. And if there's a thing we can do to support that, I mean, making this resource available on our website and doing this webinar is an example of what we try and do. We often try and do something that is free and publicly available when we see a key topic like this. We don't want to ask you to do an extra thing on top of all the things that you're already probably doing if you're working in social services, healthcare, all of the settings, community kind of settings that we often see people working in, who are now being asked to put their pronouns in their email signatures or related areas. We're not kind of trying to lay it at your feet and be like, you need to know exactly why you're doing this, or don't even bother, or you need to make your entire organization completely different. And, you know, we don't actually expect that that's always possible if you're a person who is not being given that institutional power. But if there are ways that you can ask your managers or ask the higher ups to provide support and education about this, that's something that I think you may not even realize how useful it is that you've asked. Even if it doesn't end up going somewhere, if there's a paper trail about people wanting information, that can still be helpful. And we just want to acknowledge that a lot of times people are doing the best they can with very, very limited resources and with very limited support around them. Yeah, we're here for you in that struggle. We are hoping that more and more there are discourses and conversations happening that really talk about centering the needs of trans and non-binary people in relation to this, rather than what a workplace is often doing. If they're doing it from a, we want to maximize the productivity of our workforce position, is kind of like, oh, we've been told that research says that if you can bring your whole self to work, you're more productive and you feel better. And part of your whole self, we've been told, involves something called pronouns. We don't really mind or care what those things are, but apparently you can put them in your email signature. So you should probably all do that, and voila, you will all be more productive. That's definitely not the angle that we would take on this, which is much more about actual organizational support for everyone, you know, for our allies as well as for our trans and non-binary people, but in a way that tries to take the pressure off the people who are always being asked strange questions. It could be just casual, polite curiosity, might be totally fine a few times, might be okay if you're a trans and non-binary person and you want to field those kind of questions. Not everybody hates that, but it might be that actually 30% of your time at work gets taken up in conversations about why they, them pronouns are perfectly grammatically correct and valid, and it just takes a bit of practice to know how to use them. And that's, you might not want to spend 30% of your working life doing that. So if you had other allies around you who would carry that conversation forward without you having to really, really bear the brunt of it, that might be really helpful. So yeah, we're aware that it's a slightly complex thing about the power dynamics within an organization as well, and within teams, and who's being asked to do this. We appreciate all of you who are doing things. We had a question come in before the webinar as part of the registration. Well, it's more a reflection and a comment that touches on what I'm talking about now, touches on the pressure that as a contractor, especially if you're not a staff member of an organization, but even if you are, I think, a staff member of an organization, and you're a trans and non-binary person, or a person who uses neo-pronouns or pronouns that people don't expect, it's not always safe or helpful for you to be feeling like, oh, I'm letting people down if I don't front that, or I'm not creating a culture of safety and respect if I don't put my pronouns in. I would argue that in that case, the principle of trans people's safety and dignity means that you might not be the person who needs to do that at that time, and that's okay. If we have our allies and our supporters doing that alongside and with us at other times, then that might be a more useful way forward. So yeah, it's not a one size fits all kind of approach, I think. We've had a couple of other questions come in. Are there any questions in particular, Jono or Moira, that you were really hoping we would get to? I kind of feel like one of the key things that we've suggested we might cover is, what do we want people to say if they get asked, say they're not a trans person, not a non-binary person, maybe they're a cis person, and they're being a good ally by putting their pronouns in their email signature, and then one of their colleagues asks them, why have you done that? What does that mean? Why are you doing that? Are you trans or what? Like, how do we want people to respond to that? How do we want to support them to respond to that question? It could be asked in a number of ways, right? It could be asked in a gentle curiosity way. It could be asked fairly aggressively. We're definitely seeing, an uptick in the more aggressive discourse about things like pronouns, increasing harassment and hate towards trans and non-binary people means these topics get a bit more fraught. So we do want you to feel supported to have some ideas about what to say in response.
Doesn't directly answer that question.
Great.
But I think it's really relevant in that conversation as well, that everybody has pronouns. They're not special. They're not like something that trans and non-binary folk, and that's it. That's the only people that have pronouns. No, everybody has pronouns. They're a literal feature of language. And so it is not asking for more. It's asking for some really basic linguistic respect that is afforded to everybody all the time. Well, it's afforded to cis folk all the time, because that whole, to put it really bluntly, what you see is what you get. I see somebody that I can process as, I think this is a male person and I'm going to use he, him pronouns. All right, fine. But when it's somebody who is trans or non-binary, that's not necessarily always the same. The gendered markers from society don't necessarily translate into how somebody's gendered identity or gendered self actually exists. And so when we're talking about why are those things there, some basics are like, well, actually, because I think it's important to stand alongside folks and normalize conversations about pronouns and normalize that. I think it's kind of funnily ironic that a lot of the conversations around pronouns are about the relationships and relationality between you and other people, which in my language, we don't have those conversations because they're built in. Everybody has one third person singular pronoun, and that's it. Because as Moira mentioned earlier, it's all about relationships. It's all relationality focused. I think that this is a way to open up more conversations about relationships and how you relate to other people. Even if you are a cis person who is putting their pronouns into their email signature, it's saying, okay, well, I use my pronouns XYZ, he, she, they,
Mm.
whatever you've got in there. And I'm normalizing and standing alongside folks who may have pronouns that are different to mine, and making it so that they don't have to do all the emotional labor around having conversations around pronouns that are exactly what is happening in this particular moment.
Workplace safety, workplace respect. It's like, yeah, you sometimes might want to go into it a bit more with people, and sometimes you just want to have a little disclaimer that's like, oh, it's a really easy way for me to be respectful. You know, if you don't want to go into it, you don't have to every time. But Moira,
Yeah. Something I've noticed a lot of people do, thinking about email signatures in particular too, is like their email signature might have a space for pronouns, and then often they'll link to a resource or a little video people can watch that explains it. Or, you know, if you wanted to, you're welcome to link to our resource in that context as well. Just so that if someone's encountering it for the first time, it gives them a chance to go off and learn about it without even having to have a conversation with anybody. So that's possibly a tactic as well. But yeah, I think some of those de-escalating ideas about like just giving people information about how to refer to me respectfully and not necessarily having to go into it if that doesn't feel safe for you feels like a helpful thing. And I mean, like Jono says, everybody has pronouns. I feel like this thing of normalizing sharing pronouns is useful beyond just trans and non-binary people as well. You know, there's the classic thing of people who have a name that could be applied to anybody of any gender, and then they'll get gendered in emails when somebody doesn't have that context. Someone will just pick whether they think somebody is like a he Alex or a she Alex or a they Alex, you know. So like having pronouns there just gives people a way to feel more confident and be more polite. Or if you've got a name that's from a cultural background that's less familiar and people don't know just from looking at your name, they can't guess, then that's just sort of a socially awkward thing. And I'm thinking of the context of LinkedIn as well, where they've got a little space you can put your pronouns in, but they've also got like a new feature where you can put up a recording of yourself pronouncing your name. And again, that's kind of just like giving people information about how to refer to you respectfully. And it's the same sort of thing. So it's not necessarily just a thing about supporting trans and non-binary people, but it is that
both
as well.
and
Yeah.
both and yeah. And people are saying in the chat, it's when people can introduce themselves, like especially if you're an ally, if you're not someone who's trans or non-binary and you're introducing yourself in a hui and you say what your pronouns are as part of that intros round, I noticed that, like if you're looking to put out those little signals to people, that it is a good one. And putting it in an email signature doesn't quite carry the same weight to me, because I don't know whether people have been told to do it and are just doing it because they were told to, but they weren't able to have a conversation about the why of it. I still notice it. I'm still like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Cool, you did that. But I'm less able to rely on it. Whereas if you do it in person, in a setting with other people, I mean, on Zoom, in person, whatever, then there's a little bit more weight to it. It's like you're fronting it more, and I appreciate that. I think really crucially, if you're a facilitator and you're thinking about running intros rounds, it comes back to that principle of not forcing people to share their pronouns, which is particularly relevant for the safety and dignity of trans and non-binary people, because often we notice that it is us sharing our pronouns and nobody else. And that's exactly what we want to counter by saying, if everyone shares their pronouns, even if that feels weird and clunky to you, because why should you? Because it's obvious, that makes for a better environment in that hui for people to be able to share their pronouns. It takes the pressure off. That's one of my underlying goals for why share your pronouns. It's to take the pressure off the trans and non-binary people or people who have pronouns that you might not expect. So don't create an environment accidentally where you're expecting us to be the ones who are sharing our pronouns because our pronouns are strange and you don't do it. It's really helpful if you do it as well in that setting. And it's okay if people aren't up for it, you know, for whatever reason. It's okay if they're not up for it. We're not going to force it, because you don't know for what reason people might not want to share. but often you can know enough about people to, you know, if they're in your team, you can kind of know a bit about what might be holding them back. And there's a lot of power dynamics in there too. Cool. Seeing
Yeah,
some good chat in here too. Yeah, Moira.
yeah, same. I was just going to add in terms of that kind of pronoun rounds in a meeting context.
Mm,
Like the thing that I would pair with that is like also like listen to what pronouns people are saying and make sure you use them.
mm,
I was in an online meeting the other day where the facilitator sort of suggested we could all add our pronouns to our Zoom name, but then throughout the session didn't use people's pronouns
that
accurately
were
or
written in
effectively.
their signet, that were written in the Zoom thing.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, if people are giving you that information, just make sure that you're using it accurately. There can be a bit of a tendency sometimes to, if you're talking to a group of trans people, for people to default to just using they, them pronouns because that they feel like that might be a more inclusive thing to do. But if somebody's actually told you that they want you to use he
Yeah.
or she pronouns or a neo pronoun,
Mm.
that's important information and you should use those ones instead.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it is a good sign if people are sharing that information with you. Like generally that is implying that they feel safe enough in that context to share this information, which we know doesn't always go down well for people. So we're taking a risk by doing that. And it really does make a difference if you listen and reflect that back. Huge difference. Cool.
I have just had the other thought, again, kind of connected, that sometimes you'll notice that over time, folks may use different pronouns or may change the pronouns that they actually use. And along the same lines of not making a big deal out of, oh God, I got your pronouns wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because making a big deal is kind of awkward for the person who's standing there going, okay, yep, cool.
It's not
I
taking the pressure off.
yeah. It's making it more strange for me right now as an interaction, and that's not what we were talking about. Just if somebody corrects you around, oh, so here I'm using these pronouns now, or more often or not, you'll just hear, oh, they, them. You can acknowledge, oh, yep, cool. New filing in my brain of that person and the pronouns they use. What else were we talking about? And again, it may take a while for your brain to catch up to the change for a person. The more you do it though, the more it's quicker for that process to go, oh right, Moira uses they, them, done. But just kind of, all right, got it, sweet, move on. Those processes are really important because it's not a one and done sort of thing for some folks. Some folks will try on, especially we find it with younger people, will try on different pronouns to figure out actually what feels the most right for describing this, everything that is in this body, to other people in my relationships with them.
I was just thinking we had a question about how to advocate for a family member, right? So if you know somebody's correct pronouns and that they've changed, you know, and you might be like, oh yeah, cool, she wants to be referred to as she, her, but a lot of my whānau are not quite on board with that yet. What do we think about some good ways to advocate in that situation? One of my go-tos is the principle of needing to check in with that person, like check in with her, see if she wants you to have conversations with other people and to correct them when they mess it up. Does she want that strong advocacy from you where she knows that you're holding the line in relationship to other people even when she's not in the room? That's great. If that's what that person wants, then you will have that information and you'll be able to go forward and do that. And when people say the wrong pronoun, probably they're saying he and you're saying nope, she, that you'll know that you're doing the right thing by that person. And some people might not want you to do that. So it's hard to know exactly what to do if you don't check in with that person themselves and be like, I'm here for you. I love this for you. You know, I'm all good. And do you want me to correct people when they get it wrong? and check about the context for that. You know, do you want me to correct people in our immediate whānau? Do you want me to correct so-and-so? I know that such and such is not necessarily on board with this. Should I talk to them about it? Take your cue from what that person wants you to do would be my go-to. But do you have anything to add, Moira or Jono, to like the advocacy about other people's pronouns piece? It's to do with context. We've already mentioned this, that like some people use different pronouns in different contexts. And if you are working in healthcare services, I know I've worked with a lot of nurses and doctors and occupational therapists who've had clients who've been real comfortable talking to them about things and are like, hey, you know, I feel like in this space, the right pronouns for me are actually they, them, or whatever. And can you do that for me? But actually when my mum comes in, she's not really on board with this yet. So can we just revert to using my name in that context? And that's can be take a minute for your brain to catch up in those different contexts, but it's valid, it's fine. It's a thing we can do.
Yeah, and I think coming back to that thing of how this is all about relationality and relationships as well, right? Like if you're intervening on especially someone's family relationships, it's really about what's between them and their mum, it's not about you. So it's, yeah, what's going to feel safe and supportive for them. So good advice, I think, Joey, in terms of taking your cues from the person.
That's accidentally a really great segue into another question that's come through, explaining. So can you please explain to cis allies why some people use multiple pronouns, i.e. she/they? I mean, I could start if you like. As a person who uses multiple pronouns, so more often than not, I will tell folks that I use they, them pronouns. My relationship to my gender is not as easily explained in English as it is in my own world. And so they, them works easiest as a simple go-to when I'm trying not to focus so much on having a conversation about my gender in the context of a conversation, say about, I don't know, where are the best meat pies in Auckland? I don't want to have to go into a big conversation about gender and gender pronouns and all of the things. Instead, I just want to be able to say, just use these. All right, can we talk about what we were actually going to talk about? And so in different contexts, I have different pronouns, but I'm also really not particularly fussed by pronouns in terms of relation to gender, because in my language, we don't have gendered pronouns. So as someone who sometimes will speak in Samoan, if I'm saying, if somebody is referring to me in the third person as a singular person, then they will say ia, like, so like he's going to the shop, she's going to the shop, they're going to the shop, but we're still talking about that singular first person pronoun. No, that is not correct. Singular third person pronouns. However, in English, that's really difficult to try and do to reflect the fact that I don't like that. That's not my relationship to the language itself. And just quietly, there's a bit in there around, yeah, but that's the colonial language and the language of the colonizer. So, but I use they, them as a simple way of describing that. I also don't mind if people use he, him pronouns. Often they see beard and go, oh, in my brain, a beard genders you as male. So I'm going to call you he, him. That's my reason. There are other reasons though. Joey.
I'm aware of time, so I feel like we won't be able to dip into this hugely, but you've answered the main points of it, I think, Jono. And it's mostly to say, because I think pronouns are a social thing, right? It's about communicating something about yourself to other people. Confusingly, it's not about the pronouns that you say about yourself are not gendered in English. You don't say I is not a gendered pronoun. You is not a gendered pronoun when you're talking directly to someone. So it's when somebody else is talking about you to somebody else, and it's how you want them to express that about you. For me, I'm pretty flexible about different pronouns being used about me, but they, them feels the most accurate, the most useful. And I can really understand why people might say they and she because both of those pronouns express different parts of me, or they and he because, or they and it's, or there's lots of different pronouns people might have. And it's about like allowing the different parts of yourself to be present in the social world. It is one of my ways of expressing it. That wouldn't be how everyone would, but it's like if you want an accurate picture of me, I might not feel like pronouns are going to give you that at all, which is valid. That might not be the way. But B, if pronouns are going to be one of the ways that I'm trying to socially communicate myself, then I might just need to use a range of them to communicate the range of me. Like most people are multitudes, most people are complex, most people have layers. And if you happen to be exploring pronouns and gender as part of that, then you might choose to express that way. No, but nobody has to, right? Yeah. And in the interest of time, I want to hand to Moira now to kind of wrap it up and point to our resource again and encourage people to sign up for more future webinars. This conversation is really important and will no doubt continue. So thank you for the excellent comments in the chat too. Yeah, I can see someone saying, you know, I'm currently using she, they pronouns because I'm comfortable with either. Could see myself using just she or just they in the future. You know, it's like you're making space for yourself. What a great idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's, yeah, like people's individual sense of themselves is complex, but also their sense of themselves in relation to other people is complex. So I think it's, yeah, also those examples you were saying too, Joey, about kind of safety or considerations to do with pronouns that you might use in different contexts or with different people or in different parts of your life. That's us. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today for this kōrero. Thank you for all your comments and questions, everything you've contributed in the chat and beforehand. Yeah, I want to encourage you to go and have a look at our website if you haven't already. So the pronouns resource is tingakakahukura.nz/pronouns. You can go and have a look at that. Feel free to share it around. I saw someone in the chat saying that they'd added a link to our resource in their email signature, which is wonderful. You're welcome to do that if that feels helpful to you. This is the first webinar we've done this year, but we've got a couple more coming up around trans and intersex healthcare and I'm sure other topics as well as we go through the year. And the recordings of previous webinars are all up on our website as well. So have a look at those if you would like to. There's a whole range of topics, all sorts of things around rainbow, queer, trans and intersex inclusion in different ways. And we're on YouTube as well. If you want to subscribe there, you'll get notified about any new recordings that come through. There's also an email list you can sign up to if you want to hear about new webinars as we advertise them. So that's probably us. I don't think I had anything else particularly to say other than just thanks again. Really wonderful to have all of your input and questions and engagement on this topic, and look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future. And I'll just close us with a karakia and let you get on with your day. Me karakia tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapunui, kia wātia, kia mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua i te ara takata. Koe ara e rongo whakaere ake ki runga kia tīna, tīna. Hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora. Thanks everyone.